CJ, first off, how's your ankle?
It's getting better by the day. I just got out of the training room, so hopefully I'll give it a go today.
How challenging was that where you hit the big three and then, you had to come out late. Obviously you were in pain, but when the team is going through an offensive half like you guys are and you weren't able to physically contribute the way you normally would, what was that like for you?
It definitely hurts just because I know I can't go out there and help my team the way I know I can. But I just had to be one of the biggest cheerleaders on the bench and just keep rooting them on.
As you guys reviewed that game, did you primarily look at the last 8 minutes or what came before that?
We kind of been talking about it all year, just playing like the full 40 minutes, and we played a good first half, and we knew it was going to be tough. They were going to make a run in the second half. That's just kind of what good teams do. And we, like you said, the last 8 minutes, we just didn't string together enough stops and score enough to put ourselves in the position the last couple of minutes to win.
When you looked at some of the looks you were getting in the second half, how much of it did you think you were actually getting what you wanted and you just weren't finishing, or you were getting blocked or whatever, and how much of it was maybe taking not your best shot?
I think we did get a lot of good looks at times. We just couldn't finish a lot of them. And then there was times we probably took some shots that might have not been our best shot for that possession. But that's like where CJ's saying, like, we got to take both halves and put them together, because you can't just have one good half and then come back and not have another good half, because you got to play the whole game, all 40 minutes, and that'll get you the win.
And Coach Holtmann has mentioned once or twice that he wants you guys to push the ball a little more and try to get some, I guess, easier offense in transition. But the transition numbers are not great. Just where do you think you guys are in that area of the game, and especially maybe the last two, what have you seen that's sort of held you back from scoring when you get in those positions?
Yeah, we definitely would like to, but there's been times where we're just kind of hesitant in transition. I guess we're focusing on a little bit too much about getting our best shot, and then we end up not taking the best shot possible for us. We just have to continue to be aggressive, especially in the first couple seconds in the shot clock, like he's told us.
One of the things that Chris said after the game against Michigan State was kind of he saw fatigue or some tiredness from your team. Kind of, has practice kind of been different, or how has he approached that? How have you guys approached that feeling, I guess? Have you sensed fatigue in this team?
Really, like with practices, when you get in this point in the year, this is where a lot of teams will be able to separate themselves from a lot of other teams, just because when you have guys that continue to work on their game and continue to work on conditioning and get better, you can make that next jump. But you're playing so many games, so many practices, your body's bound to start to get fatigued. So you just got to work on kind of maintaining and trying to stay healthy throughout that whole process.
Along those lines, have you seen Luther's he was hitting some shots and then he's kind of been struggling, freshman. Do you guys remember back to when you were there? How much of an adjustment is it is it a real thing, the freshman wall? And have you seen it out of maybe the freshmen that it's kind of like their eyes are open, that this is a long season?
Yeah, it's definitely a long season, not just for the freshmen, but for all of us. The way the Big Ten is this year, everybody's kind of just beating up on each other, and each game that you play is tough, no matter if you're playing the first-ranked team or the last. Yeah, every game is going to be a grind. It's going to be a battle. So I wouldn't consider him being like hitting a wall or anything. Just as one of the older guys on the team, I just got to make sure his confidence is up and he's staying positive about things like that. I still have the utmost confidence in him, and I hope he has the most in himself.
I guess I was just saying, coming from high school, it's just a different game. It's a different animal. And these guys adjusting to the grind, how do you help them through that? And do you remember back to what that was like, that adjustment?
Yeah, it's definitely different. Like last year with me, like that, just knowing that transition, like it's tough. The physicality, everything, pace of the game, it's something that you got to get used to. But like all our freshmen, they've done a really good job in my eyes transitioning. So, like CJ said, we just got to try to, with our experience. He's a senior, I'm second year, but with any experience that we have, we just got to try to give them as much knowledge as we can to help them.
Kind of jumping off Rob's question, how have the young guys done at avoiding big picture issues, instead focusing on the here and now, one game at a time sort of perspective, and how much has Coach Holtmann had to stress that with the team?
That's just kind of how he preaches it. Even when we were in the summer and we months away from games. We were just focused on getting better that day, whether it was the weight room or conditioning on the track. So the approach now is pretty much no different. We have to get better today. That way we can prepare ourselves best for tomorrow. Can't really look at what happened in the past or the next games we have coming up. We can only focus on what's right in front of us, and Coach Holtmann has done a great job in enforcing that.
Is that harder to do, though, at this time of year when people have a resume and people start talking about the future and that sort of thing? Or is that easier to do now at this time of year because you're in a routine and in a pattern?
Yeah, I would just say we're accustomed to that. That's kind of how he's built a culture for us. We know it's got to be a day-by-day process, and then that way we can look long-term. And if we keep continuing putting good days together, when you look up in a couple weeks, we'll be sitting where we want to be.
Kyle, Coach mentioned on his radio show that maybe you're still dealing with some lingering soreness from your leg. I'm just wondering how that's impacting you and sort of where you think you are relative to being, I guess, 100% healthy.
Still just trying to keep up with, rehab every day, stuff like that. Trying to make my legs stronger, icing all the time, stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, I figured, I was gonna have some soreness here and there. I'm not really trying to let it affect my game or anything like that. I just still want to go out there and play as hard as I can every play. So usually when I get going and stuff, though, it feels pretty good.
When you look back at the Michigan State game and what happened in the second half, was there one takeaway that you had that more so than anything else that you guys can't have this specific thing happen again?
I just think we can't have as many offensive lapses as we had, and then that kind of us being kind of a young team, that kind of translates to defense, and so that can't continue to happen, especially when we play teams like that, especially in their gym. They're going to shoot the ball much better in the second half than they did. I'm pretty sure their coach got on to them during halftime just about whatever. And so we just have to make sure we continue to play another good 20 minutes, but more importantly, just take it 4 minutes at a time, and then that way we can look up at the end of the game and be where we want to be.
And then, CJ, a lot of fans, a lot of people are excited about the Nets freshman class that are coming in. But when you as a senior, and this is sort of your last ride, what's it like when you're going through this and you're technically in the bubble, you're fighting for an NCAA tournament spot, but people are also excited about the future, but this is your year. I mean, how do you mentally process sort of that?
Personally, I haven't really put too much thought into that. All I can control is this year, and I'm pretty sure that's the same mindset as everyone on our team and the coaching staff. They've done a good job just expressing how much in the race that we still are in it and how much fun the rest of the season can be. We're by no means out of it. And so we're just going to keep focused on, what we can control.
CJ, you've talked about, with this being your last year, just kind of some of the emotions that come with that and appreciating your last season at Ohio State. Has that hit you at all? We only got 6 Big Ten games left, and then March is right around the corner. Has any of that hit you a little bit?
It hasn't really hit me all the way yet, but I did see the first March Madness commercial 2 days ago, so then I just kind of yeah, it is coming to an end. It's really, really close, but I'm just trying to enjoy it as much as I can with my teammates and the coaches, and it's a really fun group of guys, so I really wouldn't want to be anywhere else but besides with them.
How has this year challenged you? I mean, you had to step into a leadership role in this team that you maybe haven't had before, and where you talked at the beginning or in the off season about getting to know Kyle and trying to build relationships and stuff. But how has this year challenged you as a leader, as a player on this team?
Many different ways. Just being more vocal. That was kind of the biggest difference that I had to transition into from this year and last year. But the biggest thing is the guys just accepted me in being the leader of the team, and they kind of embraced it, and there was no butting heads with anyone, and I feel like it's just not just me, but we all lead in some kind of different way, so that makes it real easy, and it's just not put on me all the weight. It's not on my shoulders. So, and we all have this same goal in mind, which is making the tournament, winning games, having basically the time of our lives, and so that makes it real easy to play with everyone.
Kyle, CJ talked in the offseason last year about your relationship and how he said he was, as a leader, he knew he had to bring everybody in, and so he specifically mentioned you, that he kind of reached out to you and tried to build more of a friendship. Mm-hmm. What was that process like for you? How did that maybe help you, and what have you seen then from CJ this year as he's tried to be that sort of senior leader on this team?
Oh yeah, no, with him being a leader, a leader is not someone that you just say and you designate like, hey, CJ, you're a leader now or anything like that. Someone that's going to lead by example, show guys the right things to do, with the effort on the court, how they are off the court, stuff like that. So this offseason, I mean, we definitely developed like a closer relationship, just hanging out, stuff like that, getting to know each other. We were close last year, but definitely more this year, and I think that helped a lot, like with my game coming into this year, just knowing I had him behind me, more confidence, stuff like that, knowing that I could play, at this level and stuff like that.
Kyle, when you look at this Northwestern team, over the past 3 games, they've had 2 centers in the starting lineup, 1 forward. Does that kind of, make you guys, I don't know if worried's the right word, but especially with the size that they have down low, what is your approach going into a game against 3 big guys like that?
No, I wouldn't say worried or nothing like that. It's just because we try to have the same approach every game. So, we're going to look at their personnel, look at their attacks, stuff like that, how they're going to be defensively, and prepare the same way we do for every team. So just between now and then, just getting ready the best we can and going about that.
So it doesn't change your approach in terms of the increased size? You don't feel like you have more of a specific role in terms of that factor?
No, I think, you just got to go out there and still be physical, block out, get rebounds, stuff like that. That might be a little bit more important in this game with the size, but other than that, yeah, you still want to have the same approach.
To both of you guys, is must win just an overused cliche, or is it accurate of your situation? How do you guys look at the last 6 and how many you need to win, or do you not worry about any of that?
We can just focus on tomorrow. So the way we're going to look at it at this point is each game is a must-win for us. We're just going to prepare today for tomorrow, and kind of how Kyle was saying, just approach it how we approach any other game. As a must-win, it doesn't matter if it's November, December, or February. You kind of want to win all of them, so they're pretty much all must-wins.
Do you feel a sense of urgency, Kyle, about where you guys are right now?
Not necessarily. Sounds like a broken record, but just what CJ was saying, it's still the same. Like, every game we want to come in with a mindset to win. Being the end of the year now, you obviously want to play well. It'll set you up good for, the things to come. But, yeah, we just got to go in tomorrow, focus on just tomorrow. When that's over, next thing, getting prepared for this weekend, and so on.
Since you guys talked about being friends, what do you 2 do when you hang out together? How close are you? Like, could you tell me his favorite movie, and do you know his parents? I mean, can you go into a little bit about?
I don't know about that close, but we hang out, just chill, stuff like that. It's normal guy things.
What do you do when you just chill, CJ?
We just, like last week, we went go get a bite to eat with Danny. After one of the games, Kyle had a birthday, so I went to his birthday dinner or party, so same thing. But yeah, it's just little things like that we probably wouldn't have connected as much with last year and as we do this year.
Kyle, do you know Derek Parton at all? Did you guys cross paths at any point?
I know of him. I think I've met him maybe once or twice, but I don't know him too well.
I was wondering if you played against him or anything like that.
CJ, we talked about how you're a senior leader and 2-year starter. Could you have seen this when you transferred to Ohio State?
Probably not, just from all the reputation of the program. And when I came here, I just wanted to be a part of something special. That was the biggest thing. I wouldn't have expected to be the leader by my senior year or anything like that. But it's definitely an honor to be, the leader of a team, the captain of a team at a program like this. And I'm thankful for every day that I get to be a part of it.
CJ, is leadership synonymous with, experience, or does it really matter how much experience you have? Can, a freshman or a sophomore be considered a leader? Or
Yeah. I don't think it's based on your class or anything. Based on the acceptance of your teammates, the approach you bring to the team and what you can bring to the team. Like, some of our freshmen lead in different ways than that they probably lead by their senior years that they do now. But yeah, I think everyone can lead. Like, Kyle leads in his own way, Caleb leads in his own way. So we all have our leaders in different ways, and that kind of helps the team.
Does the experience help with, the comfortability?
Yeah, definitely. It's not like anything new to you. Just speaking up in timeouts. Getting on guys when you have to. They're kind of expecting it. Just because of the experience that you have.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. And again, were you invited to his party? Chris?
What's that?
Were you invited to Kyle's party?
No. Thanks, Kyle. Looks like Kyle will be getting less playing time tomorrow. So, all right. Obviously, preparing for Northwestern here this week. A veteran group. Vic Law's a tremendous player. Got a lot of respect for he and Pardon and the contributions that they make to their team. You can tell how much those guys care about winning and playing to win. Obviously, those guys have been through a lot of battles in the Big Ten. They've kind of played, it seems like from day one since they arrived, a really important role. I've got just tremendous respect for Chris Collins and the job he does. They're so disciplined in how they play, and I'm talking defensively and offensively. I've got some graduate transfers that have helped them. Ryan Taylor's really helped them in terms of scoring the ball. And then like us, they've had some young guys that have made some real contributions as well. So it'll be a typical Big Ten game. It will be a tremendous grind, and we'll need to play well.
Chris, just sort of in your general coaching philosophy, I guess, where does playing in transition fall in? How much would you ideally like to be a team that scores in transition?
It's always something we're trying to do. We're trying to score in the first 7-8 seconds of the clock, if possible. The faster your team is, the more capable you are, the faster the makeup of your team is. We did some really good things in transition last year. We've had some good moments this year. But I think depending on how fast your team is, how fast your bigs are, sometimes predicates that, and how good your finishers are.
Because you have mentioned, I think, maybe once or twice this year that you'd like to see you guys push the ball perhaps a little more than you have on the whole, but the numbers in transition are not particularly good. Is it something that you sort of do anyway because if you do it right, it's easier offense, or do you have to pull back at all because sometimes you don't have a group that can do it?
Yeah, we've talked about that because we have really struggled finishing in transition. Those plays that some of our guys made last year, in particular, JT was a really good transition finisher, right? Get ahead of the ball, take it and go finish. We don't have necessarily the makeup of our team isn't guys like that. So we have talked about potentially pulling it out. But I would like for our guys to be aggressive in transition. If we have a 2-on-1, a 3-on-2 opportunity, I don't think I'm ever going to want our guys to pull that ball out in that situation. I'm just not. And we've got to get better at finishing. We've got to get better at completing plays. I understand we've gotten our shot blocked on a number of occasions in that situation, and we don't always convert. But man, it goes against kind of who I am to tell our guys in a 2-on-1, 3-on-2 situations, a numbers advantage. Hey, back it out and let's run a offense.
It might be easier to lead when things are going well and everyone praises leadership when you're winning, but sometimes it's more important to be a leader through the tough times. How have you seen CJ coming along?
I think CJ's done a good job. I think CJ is, what I love about CJ is he really cares about the team, and he cares about Ohio State winning. I just believe that wholeheartedly, and I think out of that comes a lot of good stuff. Do I wish that at times he'd be a little more assertive in some areas? when it comes to that, and be more demonstrative in his leadership, sure. But man, I just love the kid and his how badly he wants his team to perform well, and sometimes that even hurts him on the floor. But I think he's done a good job. I just think, he's also, needed some help in that area. It's hard when, and I think Keyshawn's done a good job given his, short time here. Joey in his own way has. But I think CJ's done good.
Following on that, with looking back on that game and the offensive struggles in the second half, a lot of it coincided when CJ rolled his ankle.
Yeah.
If he's healthy in that second half, I know, it's hypothetical, but would that have helped you? How much would that have made a difference, given what he gave you, like in the first half?
Yeah, I think it would have, because I think he would have helped. I think he would have helped on both ends. We had some situations where we got attacked. One of our young kids got attacked in a certain couple situations there that broke the game open. And you'd like to think that CJ would have been better defensively in that situation. But also, I think his ability to maybe make a play, make a shot. It was such an interesting game because it was about tied with 7.5 minutes to go, and then kind of finished looking like a blowout. But certainly he would have helped.
It's interesting to me that we've talked so much this year about Caleb and his importance and all the things that he does, and I don't know that we've maybe talked enough about how important it is what CJ provides. And it seems the last 7-8 minutes of that game really showed that when he's not on the court, just how important he is to this team's success.
Yeah, and I think he's had moments where he's obviously really, really helped our team, and then I know he's had moments where he's struggled, but at this time of year, most times, you're going to rely on your older kids and your seniors and play through some of their mistakes. And that would have been nice to have him on the floor, but it's not the reason we lost the game. But he would have made a difference.
You mentioned Sunday about talking about Caleb Weston's fatigue, and has your approach changed with Caleb in the practices, or what did you see as the cause of that fatigue down low?
I think it's season, the wear and tear of the season. I think he's a big guy. He's not a guy that can just motor up and down the floor. That's not necessarily who he is. It's not who he's ever going to be. So it's harder for a guy that is that big. So I think it's that, and I think it's probably the how many minutes he's played this season. We've done some things. I don't necessarily want to get into some specifics, but we've done some things this year differently to try to keep him at a higher fitness level. He's done some things, I should say, with our strength staff. But we got to continue to keep our thumb on that.
And heading into this game, you already mentioned Big Law, but over the last 3 games, Northwestern has started 2 centers along with Law.
Yeah.
How does it seems like another matchup for Weston in terms of a physical. It's a big matchup. How is that approach moving forward, especially against another team that's maybe a lot bigger? Yeah,
Pardon is both of them really, but you're right. They've started a bigger lineup, and Pardon is really, really physical. Both guys are that they start. We'll see if they start that way tomorrow, but he's got to do a good job competing and fighting, because it's like you said, he's going against a guy a couple years older who's a really physical player, a couple guys that are big bodies he's going to be going against.
Chris, one of the consistencies this year has been the inconsistency of three-point shooting, outside shooting. When you make them, you're right there.
Yeah.
When not, it can be a problem.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I don't think I've ever asked a coach this. Not frustration, but what's the challenge of coaching shooting? Because other things you can do in coaching, positioning, but shooting is kind of what it is. What do you do with that, and what's it like watching that? When do you know it's on or off?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of times this time of year it is a confidence thing, and so it can be delicate. I think the thing you're trying to coach is the quality of shot as much as anything, and I think that as a coach, that's really what you're looking for. What is our quality of shot? Jeff Van Gundy's famous line, "It's a make or miss league," in talking about the NBA. I think that's true in a lot of there's no question that's true in basketball in general. It's a little bit like foul shooting, but you're sensitive to how much you're getting on a guy about making shots. I think what you're more stressing is what is the quality of our shot, and if they're good shots and they're good looks, and they are within a guy's strength, then we want him to have the freedom and not to be looking over at the bench. Hey, should I shoot this or not? We want him to shoot it.
What's been the quality of shots season long, and maybe from the first of the year on? How would you gauge that?
I think it's been good for the most part. There's been moments where it's not been good, and some of that's a byproduct of the defense. I think that our shot selection gradually as the seasons went on has gotten a little bit better with certain guys, but I think our shot quality's been pretty good. I think we've had some guys, because we can struggle to score, that at times are trying to do things that maybe they're not quite ready to do, or it's not quite in their strength right now, whether that's something they need to add to their game or whatever the case may be. That happens when you have a group that can struggle to score the ball at times.
And last thing, Washington and Muhammad. Is there a freshman wall? Is there such a thing? I mean, Luther had the one game where he was on fire, and then he's hit a bump here big time.
Perhaps there may be. I think there's normal. The dog days of February, normal fatigue when you're leaning on guys as much as we have, in particular with him. He's just got to keep working, and he's got to stay with it. He's got to control what he can control, which is his preparation, his rest, his preparation for practice. I'm sure, they probably played about a season and a half of high school basketball right now. So there's going to be general fatigue, but that's the case for most freshmen around the country right now. A guy like Luther, who kind of from day one has been a pretty high-minute guy, might feel it more than others. And we feel it as a team when he struggles.
Chris, since you talk about how much this time of year is confidence, we've talked about your honesty before. Do you have to make an extra effort when in game to make every constructive criticism sound like a compliment because of how crucial confidence is?
I think at times you're I think you want to be real, but at the same time, I think as much as you can coach positively right now in league play in general, the better. Particularly when you have a team like we have with some new faces and some young guys. There's no question that things need to be addressed, and it's not always going to be roses, don't get me wrong, but I think that as much as we can, we want to try to coach in a way that's constructive and that's positive. We're trying to build upon those positive things we've done, and yet at the same time, like there's some real serious things that we've got to continue to work to fix that you're addressing in as matter of fact ways you can.
But the level of positivity in game as opposed to like a practice state, does that have to be even higher rate of? I
think so. Yeah, I think so. I'm not big on it being too manufactured or false, because I think you can't fool players. But I do think that, I think it's something you're aware of as a coach. Can you bring a positive approach this time of year?
And you talk about all the new faces and young guys. CJ mentioned seeing the first March Madness commercial. It's that time of year. Do you have to stress to this particular group to live in the moment, not look at the big picture, or is this a group that doesn't need that message, just does it because they're in a routine and because you've stressed it all along?
Yeah, our only focus is Northwestern. And that should be our only focus right now is preparing for Northwestern. I can't control obviously what kids see in their own time, but that's our only focus right now. That should be our only focus.
But do you need to tell them that, or do they just sort of adopt that philosophy on their own?
Well, I think they'll sense that as we continue to prepare for them, that's the only thing we're talking about as coaches is Northwestern and getting better.
Chris, I was going to follow up on that as well with the tournament, because last week I asked you about the bubble, and you're not ready to even think about that stuff, and that's not part of coaching. But you touched on the players and their outside time. We obviously talk about it a lot. They're going to hear about it. Some of them will seek it out. I mean, what's the balance? You just don't ever bring it up, or do you?
We talked about it in the past, a time or two, but I'm not quite sure what the benefit of talking about it is. Or what are you gaining from that? Our focus needs to be on getting better and preparing for Northwestern and trying to limit our turnovers and trying to do basketball things that this team needs to do to improve and try to keep our guys in a positive mindset and a positive frame of mind. They know there's a lot of season left to be played, but our only focus needs to be on just can we be better today in preparation for what's coming tomorrow. And it sounds boring, and, I'm okay with that.
You play Northwestern tomorrow. You guys have almost been through entire regular season, and then in 2 weeks you'll play them again at their place. Is there an extra challenge in that? How do you view that as a coach?
Say the last part. Say the part again.
How do you view it as a coach when you play a team and you've been through a regular season and then you go to their place just 2 weeks later?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic with how the schedule this year falls with, we had a little bit of a similar issue when we were in the Big East where you wouldn't see them all year and then you play them again like a week and a half later. It's just a weird kind of scheduling quirk that I'm not sure why it comes up like it does. I'm sure there are other teams in the Big Ten outside of us and Northwestern that faces that. But, it'll obviously mean that both teams will know each other really well when we play each other a second time. You kind of know each other really well at this point anyway because of how much film is available and how much of the season has been played. But when you're playing that quickly again, obviously we're not worried about that now, but it's unique how quickly your turnaround is.
Going back to the freshman wall question, Dwayne kind of hit a stretch earlier in the Big Ten schedule where he kind of went through a rough patch, and we asked you about why Luther is still continuing to be consistent every single game.
Yeah.
And you talked about his conditioning, and now he's 4 for 25 in his last 3 games here, and some of those shots, especially in the Michigan State game, the second half, seemed kind of forced.
Yeah.
Does it seem like it's getting to him because he's finally having a stretch where things just aren't going his way at all?
I don't want to speak for him. You'd have to ask him that. I'm sure he's frustrated, with just kind of not feeling. What Luther's got to concentrate on is, hey, am I taking good shots? Am I staying aggressive? Am I competing on both ends? Am I bringing what I know I can bring to this team to help this team win possessions? And he's not got to worry. He's got to resist being frustrated with anything outside of that, as do all of our guys. Hey, it's easy to get frustrated this time of year. For every program, you got to fight some of that, and you got to be willing to kind of push through and figure out what you can do to impact the game. Did you have a question? No.
They got it. I
Okay.
just wondered, it's in there. Great first half in East Lansing, so there's hope you can get it.
Yeah, I think you try to build on some of the positives that we try to do that in every game. Clay, really, we're just trying to look at, hey, what did we do in a positive way, and how do we build upon that? It's a little bit to Lori's question on building off the positives, and I think you're also trying to address some things on maybe why we struggled like we did beyond giving credit to Michigan State in the second half. Okay.